Hey guys, and welcome to today's episode of Give It the Beans. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce. I'm actually going to say a woman who doesn't need an introduction. It's just double Miss Scotland, Carolyn Mitchell. How are we doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. Now, before this podcast, Carolyn said, "Hey Yvonne, is it just going to be audio only?" I said, "Well, no, I'll probably put it on YouTube as well. I better go brush my hair." And as you can see, I've not brushed mine. So thank you for that. But listen. Can you give the listeners who are maybe perhaps new to the podcast, not a brief introduction, a big introduction to who you are, your history within bodybuilding, and what happened this season?
Yeah. So I'm Carolyn. I'm from Aberdeen, in the northeast of Scotland. Looking at my history in bodybuilding, I guess it kind of starts initially in 2018-ish. So I went on a sort of like a fat loss journey. I hate the word journey, but journey, transformation, kind of whatever you want to call it. So I started my journey in 2018 just with the initial goal of losing some weight from being typically kind of fat and unhappy, basically. Over the years, I worked with like various like PTs and the gym floor and did like group exercise and stuff like that. And just kind of found myself in a position sort of between 2020 and 2021 where I'd fallen into the bodybuilding lifestyle and just in terms of structure, I'd fallen in love with training. And I reached a point in 2021 that I kind of achieved everything I set out to achieve. I was as little as I could be, and that was kind of my goal at the time, was just to get like really, really slim and feel good about myself. And I saw a female bodybuilder, and it was a figure girl, and I was like, that looks sick. I was like, that looks really, really cool. Imagine doing that. And I couldn't imagine myself doing it, but I was like, I just must feel incredible. And then I started looking into bodybuilding and kind of watching YouTube videos and following people on Instagram. And I was like, I'd really like to do that. I'd really like to experience that. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to work with somebody who knows what they're talking about. And I'm going to have to set this goal. So yeah, it was summer 2021, started having consult calls with various coaches, yourself included. And that's when we started working together with the initial goal of competing. Well, I took to the table. I was like, I want to do the transformation category. I was like, I do the transformation category.
I totally forgot that you said that. You just imagine you backstage. If you remember that Nava with a big fat sword saying, "Carolyn, remember you wanted to do the
Oh my God, I know. That's what I thought. I thought that's all you're going to be good enough to do. That's kind of all you're going to be capable of, is to get up there and showcase your transformation. But you were like, yeah, nah.
But I shouldn't laugh, but the reason I'm laughing is because how well Carolyn done. So I didn't take anything away from anyone that does transformation category. It's just I was there when she just won loads of shit, and it was incredible. Talk me through how gutted you were when you first came on the call and I said you should do bikini.
Pardon?
I said, talk me through how gutted you were when I said you should probably do bikini. That's a question I didn't send. I just want to throw that in there, Not the prerequisite questions, just another one.
No, it's fair. I mean, I was a bit like, oh, I don't really like it that much, but okay.
Yeah. But I guess this is kind of one of the things that we're going into. Probably I had originally said go discuss the season, but we'll get into that. So I think that this kind of leads us into that first question, which was there was a period in time when we kind of got going with coaching that you moved away from the bikini class and we sort of start specifically training for a figure. Talk the listeners through kind of why, when, maybe advice you'd give to girls who are thinking about it. Maybe they're with a coach, they've been told they need bikini or whatnot. Just give us your experience, your journey, but also your 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, initially I was like, okay, this is going to be my starting point in the sport, and that's going to be the first goalpost. I knew that wasn't going to be the only goalpost, but that was going to be the first. But after I think I persevered for about 3 months. So I had posing lessons, I did the training, and I was just there like, I just don't want to do it. I just knew in my heart, I was like, I'm just not going to enjoy it. I don't like it. And I was just in awe of toned figure girls. Everything about them on stage, their look, everything. I was just in awe of them. And I was just like, well, if I'm going to invest so much time and effort into this process and I'm not fully invested in it myself, then I'm not gonna give it 100%. So yeah, I just came to you and I just said, like, listen, I'm gonna have a posing lesson with a posing coach just to get me into these poses. Can we maybe look at changing? And you were like, yeah. I mean, if that's what
Well,
you
you
want,
think you didn't say that. I remember it. You
oh
just
no,
said
I'd already done it. I'd already
yeah.
done it. Yeah, and I already had the posing lesson, and then I just fired them through to you actually, and I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. How was that reciprocated by me?
Yeah, you were supportive. You were realistic with the sort of the tissue that I had to put on, but you were supported. And I think within like a few hours, I had my new training plan.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm sure when you sent me them, I was like at my laptop doing admin.
Yeah.
I got to like the end of the list of kind of things I needed to do that day, and I just went, "Oh, new program, Carlin." You know what I mean? Just add that in. What was the? I mean, I would love to say what was the difference in how you were training before to then what you needed to, but it wasn't a whole lot because it was still the same areas, bar a little bit of back that needed brought up.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, we're still slamming glutes like countless times a week because my glutes needed to come up, the size needed to come from everywhere anyway from the start. So it wasn't too different. But I just, yeah, I think just knowing I was going into my sessions with that goal, regardless of how much the training changed or didn't change, then I was a lot more motivated.
If you were to say like doing that figure posing, did it, to the girls that were sitting on the fence, did it just feel more you? Did it feel more natural? Like, I would jump on a console and girls say like, oh, I'm not that, sassy, girly and whatnot. I mean, talk us through the difference in that.
Yeah, I think how you feel in the poses is huge. Like you can be in a bikini front shot or a figure front shot, and you'll know yourself what you prefer, the way your body feels in. So a lot of it was down to just how I felt. If you get to a point that you start looking at like your transitions and stuff, it's which you prefer for yourself. Um, for me, I was more comfortable in those poses, and also I could hit them better as well. I really struggled with bikini poses, and I know that obviously with time, posing drastically improves with practice, but just initially, naturally, I'm not saying my posing was good after my first lesson, but I found it a bit easier to get into than bikini.
Yeah, you just really struggled to hit your hip up.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember
really, really struggled.
I remember doing your check-ins when you were sending bikini poses, and yeah, you're right. You could tell it wasn't you, in
Yeah,
hindsight now. But I think that's just something major to. And the reason I say that is I've had a new client come aboard this week who they moved over. They were prepping for a bikini show in September time. On the consult call, kind of figured out she didn't like bikini. She loved figure. She wanted to do figure. Anyway, she's ended her prep. She's not doing it, and she's going to do tone figure next year. So I just thought it was kind of big to come from yourself in regards to how well you've done. We'll talk about it here shortly about how you kind of started with the idea and the notion of you need to do bikini, but actually, like, it wasn't you because you're the one on stage, and at the end of the day, you're the one that's up there. It's not me. You're the one having fun or not having fun, and I can't imagine how this season would have went if you'd done bikini.
I know, totally, and I think if you like a double bicep or something, you're not going to get to chuck that up in bikini, are you? It's a little bit of personality comes into it as well. I feel.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Obviously, bikini girls can do a little cheeky flex now and again, but there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's you as a person kind of determines it as well.
well, I mean, for as much as you said that you weren't a sassy pants, you were the sassiest of all pants on any stage that I saw you this season. So
No.
that came from you being comfortable, confident in those poses, and just feeling yourself type thing. But there'll be some people out there that maybe again just landed on this episode. They've never been on Instagram before. They haven't seen all the results, the photos, the swords, and all that. So just talk everyone through your season. Like we start with your first show, lead up to that, how it went, and then we'll just kind of the highs, the lows, the challenges, everything else in between.
Yeah. Yeah. First show was in Aberdeen, so my hometown. It was Granite City Bodybuilding, which was really handy because it's just 15 minutes in the car from the house. So it was quite comforting knowing I was so close to home. Got to sleep in my own bed the night before, didn't have the stress of travel or anything like that. Obviously, yourself and a few members of the team were in Aberdeen too. Tanning was super local. So the lead up was really stress free. I came and saw you after tanning the night before, and I was in your Airbnb at 5 o'clock in the morning checking in. So I was completely at ease the whole time, because you were so close by. The venue was so close by, the tanning was so close by, and I was so familiar with my setting. Um, so went into that show absolutely terrified. I was really excited. I still don't think I was too nervous, but I was scared. I think nerves and scared is different for me. I just had no idea what to expect when I was on that stage, but I was just so buzzing to get up there. So I went on and I walked away with a second in the first show, which I was really, really chuffed with because aside from a few moments of, I think I could do quite well now and again, largely I was like, I just don't want to look out of place. I just don't want to get up there and just people be like, who is this girl and what is she doing? Sitting cringing. So I was really, really chuffed to be walking out of the second place there.
I'm going to add that technically should have won that because the winner of that category has just won second at the PC Universe in athletic figure. Phenomenal athlete, unbelievable athlete, but should have been athletic figure. Probably would have won athletic figure on the day. But I remember, I was so nervous for you in the crowd. I was right beside Erin, and honestly, and Jemima as well, and Emily was there. My heart was just going, well, because you looked class, and you could tell that you were competitive in the lineup, but how they judged it and where they put you just wasn't reflective of the end result.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there and I'm going, this is really hard to sort of see what they're thinking. I'm like, I know she's in the top three, but usually she's a winner at the first. I don't even think they held they maybe held on center stage. I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, it was hard. But yeah, after that, I mean, that just really set the standard for what would come later.
Yeah.
So what happened after that?
Weekend after that was a small show, FMC, which wasn't local, and that was last minute. And literally on the Monday, I was like, I knew one of our teammates, Chris, was going, and I was like, I could just go because I knew I had PCA the following weekend, and I was like, I felt like I was a bit shaky on my feet, and I could have done a bit better at Granite, so I wanted to bring my best to PCA. So I was like, I'll just do it. So they didn't have a tone figure category at FMC, did they?
No.
It was just athletic figure, and they did say that I met the criteria for it. And there was also another category that I could enter, which was fit body, I think. So I'm just going to go for it and just get some more stage experience. So that weekend I got first and a second, and I think that was a good. I think doing that show on reflection was really beneficial for what came with the rest of the season.
Talk us through why.
So first of all, got more stage experience for sure. Second of all, it was a small show. I was against one other athlete in one of my categories, and I left quite disheartened by the results. And I think that it put me in a position where I had two options. I could flip my lid and spit my dummy out and shout and scream and say it's not fair. They said this, they said that. Or I could just put my big girl pants on and show up. And I went with the latter. So
what happened after
that? What, into PCA?
Yeah.
Yeah. Went to PCA, PCA is where it all started for me. So when I said before that I'd seen a figure competitor, that was where it was a PCA stage. So I was just like, oh my God, I'm ready to go. Me. I'm going to start on a PCA stage. And I was so buzzing, like ridiculously buzzing for it. And I went on and I competed and I came second.
Yeah. That was wicked, man. It was quality. It was a different look because I think you did something different with your hair that day as well.
Yeah, I did. That was so I went with like a sort of like slick back pony with braids and I just looked badass and I felt
because one of the most iconic shots of you this season out with the swords and that is the one Emily took of you like right at that right hand side where it's got PCA.
Yeah.
That was mega. It was probably one of the, I'm not gonna say one of my favorite looks because you look fucking badass, but just like the stage quality of those photos are brilliant. So you're three shows in to the
Yeah.
first ever season. How are you feeling at that point?
So good, chuffed, but kind of hoping for a first at this point. After getting second, I was hoping. I knew I was like, come on, your time's got to come. Like, what can we do to come back better? And I was on such a high at that point because, granted, I was quite emotional about it. So I was like, oh my god, I've just done that. At the point of PCA, I was on such a high. I felt good, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to win at that point.
Yeah, 100%. Which made the following Saturday even tougher. So what happened?
So we competed in toned figure at NFM UK. That's right, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
NFM UK. So I was competing against somebody that I had beat previously, but it didn't make me confident. I didn't go in thinking, oh, I've won this. I wasn't sort of arrogant or anything like that. I mean, anyone who knows me or was around me on show day knew I was backstage like up until the minute my foot stepped on that stage. I was like, you just don't look good enough. You just don't look good enough. So my confidence wasn't, an issue there. I didn't go in big headed, but I did come second that day.
Yeah.
And a lot of people had said to me, "Well, you beat this girl before. Why are you nervous?" And I just don't think I'm going to be good enough as usual, which is kind of common language that I use. And then I got called second, and I came off, and people were like, "Oh, like, are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm fine, but I told you." And that's what, and I got really defensive about it. I was like, "I tell you," and then it's just proven that I'm right. So people are saying, "Believe in yourself. You can get a first." Blah blah blah. Clearly, I can't. And that was the sort of attitude that I took. But I didn't pack it in. I didn't go and do anything stupid that night because I was competing the next day. So I was like more driven than ever because I was like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. And actually never want to feel like that again.
Yeah. You could see how tough it was because I said I was like, go. It wasn't didn't say go home. I was like, go away, do your thing, like because at that point, you got best poser, right? If there's any consolation for that, but it was just an example of bodybuilding to me.
Yeah.
That whenever you think it's going to go your way, it doesn't, and whenever you don't think it's going to way, it does. So, bodybuilders, I always say, kick me in the dick more often than I could tell you. But I just knew in those first couple of hours post show, like nothing I say would have made you feel better.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't have. And I think what did make the experience a bit better that day was the winner, the girl who won. I genuinely was so happy for her because I saw how much it meant to her, and she deserved it. And backstage, she came up to me and was like, I thought it was just inevitable I was going to get a second because you beat me every time. And I was like, I looked her in the eye and I was like, that's why you need to keep showing up. Just keep showing up. And that night, sat in my hotel and I was like, you need to take your own advice.
Yeah. Then what happened?
So I went on to compete the next day at IBFA Lochgelly in tone figure. And although I showed up, I was still backstage like, there's just no point. Like there's just no point in you being here. You should have just gone home because I was tempted just to call it there and just compete the following weekend instead, but I was there anyway. So I was backstage and it was almost like I was just like a bit defeated. I was like pumping up like you're just going up there to make up numbers at this point. But so just go and have fun with it. Just give it your all when you get on stage. I have an alter ego on stage anyway. It's almost like the minute my toe passes the curtain, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So I did. I went up there and I gave it 100% and more. Probably worked myself the hardest I have on stage. And I won. I won my category.
Yeah, you did. It's worthwhile adding that. So the Saturday you went against a girl that you'd beaten previously, and then the Sunday you were going against a girl that had beaten you previously. So really, like, epitomised what bodybuilding's about is that, it's your day some days and it's someone else's day others. You won your class, and then what?
So then I hung around for the overall at the end of the day with some really, really lovely girls. It was such a good, that's obviously the first time I've been on an overall. But no, I'd been in with FMC as well, but just, yeah, really wholesome backstage moments. Went on stage with them, did our comparisons, and I took the IBFA Miss Scotland overall.
Yeah, you did. It was mental.
Yeah.
I still remember like when they were calling out like who was in third place and what that for the overall. When they called out the girl that came third, I was looked to whoever was there and was like, "She's won." I was like, "There's no way they're giving that girl second." I was like, "She's won." I was mental. It was amazing. It was brilliant to be part of. We'll get into the lessons and all that after, but then what happened 6 days later?
So 6 days later, we were competing. It was another double weekend. So it was NABA on the Saturday. So went in there, and again, I was competing against somebody who had beaten me, but I had at that point beaten her. But and another competitor that I'd competed against before as well. But that still doesn't do anything to my ego ever, because it's almost like the minute it happens, I'm straight back to, okay, so at the next show, I need to do this, I need to do that, this is who I'm against. So I still wasn't going into the show confident at all, or with any predictions of what could happen, because at that point it could have gone either way. But again, I knew that I was bringing my best. So went up there at NABA. I had actually really enjoyed the stage time. It was a different experience any of the shows, I think, because it's quite strict. Like when I first went on stage, I was sort of giving it beans and getting into my positions and giving it sass, and I was told off like no posing and stuff. And it was an odd setup if you were like on stage and then you went off for quite a while to go in for the results, but you're just waiting backstage being told when you were going back on. And when you did go back on, there's more quarter turns, and it was an unusual experience, but I did really enjoy it. And then they called the class winners, they called third, they called second, and then I got first at NABA.
Yeah, you did.
Which was ridiculous, because to me, like, NABA is very like prestigious, historic. So that to win at an NABA show, I was like, that's really cool. Like, really cool.
Then what happened?
So then I still can't say this out loud without like nervously laughing. And I was back on stage for the overall with all the other overall girls. And again, it was really, really good fun. At that point, I was just so chuffed. I was just so chuffed that I'd won my class, and I was on cloud nine anyway. So I just kind of had fun with it and enjoyed it. Went off, and then they took all of the competitors, so the male and female, on together for the overall. And I just remember walking on and seeing like two massive swords and just being like, it's really big. It would be pretty cool. And then at this point, you just don't know. When you're up there as a competitor, I knew that you knew, but when you're up there as a competitor, like I'm backstage messaging you, and I'm like, I have no idea. But I'd have been chuffed for anyone, obviously. But I was looking at the sword like, nah, surely not. And then they sort of called it like, your new NABA Miss Scotland is, and it was me.
Yeah, yeah. To insert a comment here for those that are wondering, I messaged Carolyn when she went. So all the girls on, then they went off. So as she went off, she gets her phone out, and I was like, I think you've won that. And she sent me this photo as you sort of like, with your
It's
vape
like an elf bar in one hand. Just like,
yeah, and it's because as they were on stage, as they turned to the rear, the head judge, the judge that was sitting beside her, sorry, was a female, and she just gets her pen out and she just points at Carolyn. You know, and then all the other judges' eyes just looked, and they just held there the whole time. So that was quite epic to be part of. Then it got a long story short because we're rambling on here. The next day, you went and did UKUP. You fucking won that. Boom, bosh, win. Then there was a decision that needed to be made. And I think this is kind of like one of the good things to go on this podcast as to we went on call on the Monday, Tuesday, one of the two. And you came on the call and said that you wanted your last show to be like, because you'd be invited to the PC Universe, the NABA Worlds, they wanted you to go, they wanted to sponsor you, blah, blah, blah. You came on the call saying you wanted to do that. You left the call saying the season was done.
yeah.
Big difference.
Huge difference.
Go.
Yeah, so I think I felt like I I had thought that prep was going to be on for longer than it was. So in my head, we already had a show lined up in Newcastle, and then I'd been toying with the idea of potentially doing the universe and maybe NABA Brits, if I got an invite. I've got an invite to NABA Worlds, so I had the opportunity to go and compete in Italy. And I was like, I'm not turning that down. That's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I was so, bearing in mind how many weekends I'd had on the bounce of shows. So at this point, you're just running on adrenaline, sheer adrenaline. And I was like, well, it's inevitable. I've got to go and compete again because I need to know when the end point is. I need to be prepared for the end point. But after having a discussion back and forth, I mean, if I went to the finals, I'd still be on prep right now. It would have been six more weeks of prep. At that point, I'd been on prep for 24 weeks. I was pretty depleted. I pushed very, very hard. And I think it's safe to say I didn't want my season to come to an end because I wasn't willing to let go.
Yeah.
But what was I holding on to at that point? I'd achieved everything and more than I expected. It was such a high to end on. And yes, I could have pushed through, but by the end of it, I'd have probably resented bodybuilding for putting myself through that. And it took a lot of teasing out. But my why at that point was compromised. And that's how I knew that I had to pull it back.
Yeah. What I like is that you kind of just reiterated everything I was saying on the call. You know what I mean? Because like I'm chatting to my wife beforehand. It's like, oh, Karen's done really well. And says, I know she wants to do this. I was like, I think she should stop here. And my wife was like, why? And I was just like, because what fucking else does she have to prove to anyone? You know what I mean? Like those future opportunities will come around because you'll be successful again. But also, the thing that I tried to get you to think about was, what does the future Carolyn want? You know, I think I'm quite big on personal development and visualization stuff. I said, if you can picture yourself at the side of the stage next year, because you know that's kind of the hypothetical goal we have. I was like, what's she telling you to do right now? And it was like literally, I said that, and it's like he just went, and you just knew you were like, stop.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, because again, it was never as a coach, it was never my job to say like you should do this. It was a case of like, right, I think she should do this, but let's see what she wants, and let's try and get her to rationally think about why the season should probably calm down. Yeah, when you say like you still be on prep, that's mentally because the NAB Worlds are next week.
Yeah. And I think if I really put my foot down and I was stubborn, like I usually am, I think you would have supported it and you would have got me there, but it wouldn't have been the productive or the right thing to do.
Nah, plus as well, like you were so used to the team, a team being around you. It shows, you know, 5, 6, 7 other athletes.
Yeah.
It'd just be you right now.
Yeah.
You know, you'd have, you know, my amazing banter in Italy, right, for sure. But you wouldn't have that team camaraderie and atmosphere and the success that we often share together, which is so much better, right? We wouldn't have 4 or 5 of us in Mickey D's post show eating cheeseburgers or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It'd just be me and you.
I know.
But also, like, no one wins 2 overalls in 6 days in your first season. Like that doesn't just happen randomly. So it was also a case of right, well, 2 major highs. What comes after that probably isn't going to lead up to that same sort of emotional high that you were on. But what a first season, eh?
Yeah. Incredible. Exceeded any expectations that I had and more. And I still don't think words will ever do it any justice.
Talk about the lows,
The lows.
the lowest points, and you know the challenges. What did they teach you? How did you overcome them? So that anyone listening, they go through that, they can kind of take a piece from your book.
I think like in terms of challenges, it was just being plagued with self-doubt a lot of the time. So I never once started prep or the time that we started, since the time that started working together, I never doubted my ability to put the work in. That was never an issue for me. The issue was the self-doubt of what I was bringing. Even though I always knew I was bringing my best because I'd done everything that I possibly could have, as a person, and you're not going to let me get on stage if I look shit. But it was just this sort of not knowing just how good I was throughout the whole season, and just being a complete dick to myself a lot of the time. And I still stand by the fact that I'm taking that forward. And I'm like, you're not allowed to be a dick to yourself. And if I start doing it, I'm like, you can pack it in, because you promised your old self that you wouldn't do that. That was a big challenge for me. It was just self-doubt. I know that we all have prep goggles and all that stuff, and we stop seeing like how lean we are at the time, and we kick ourselves 6 weeks post show because we're like, oh, I was really lean, and I was saying I wasn't. But it was really challenging to get a grip on just valuing yourself as a person and an athlete, and the fact that you are competitive. That was quite challenging.
How did you overcome that? Was it the results that kind of made you overcome it, or was it you?
I think it was a combination. I think it was a combination of the results, time throughout the season, and overcoming the lows as well, because it takes a strong mind to get out of those sort of low moments. And it teaches you a lot about yourself when you can pull yourself back from that headspace within 12 hours.
Yeah. The biggest one for me was the NFM UK turnaround.
That was
Because
huge.
I'm sure, like, if you go back to listen to previous podcasts, you can. I think I spoke about an example of kind of what we've done. So go back to listen to that if you're listening to this. It's my job as a coach to be like, right, how do I help this athlete, this person, process this result, but also come back better and confident tomorrow, knowing that they're going against the person that's beat them before. And though, like, I was like, we have to try and come in tighter.
Yeah.
You know, like, that was what we did differently, and it worked.
It did.
Fit the criteria really well. And for me, it was the first time I had athletes doing back-to-back shows, like 2 weekends on the bounce, to Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday. So to have that result there on the Sunday was mega. But I think for me, like, I saw your face when they said, and in the first place says, you know what, Carolyn Mitchell, that first proper win where you beat someone, that kind of looked like a bit of a turning moment.
Mm-hmm. It was, yeah. It was pure shock. It was pure shock. It was, I think I audibly gasped, and looked at the head judge square in the eye when she said it.
But it was also, like, the reason I say it's the turning point was it was that reaction on stage. It was also how you were after it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like your body language, your confidence, how you were speaking about yourself and blah, blah, blah. We put in some food, and I remember sitting beside the fire exit door, and you're like, oh, Vaughn, do you want to go do a check? And I was like, nah, you're good. And I was like, you're fine, just go backstage. You're like, you'll be sweet. And then you went and won the overall. But I just think it would be quite good for you to, because there will be some females listening to this that no doubt one day will compete, and they will come second, or they will maybe not place, or a result may not go their way, or whatever, and they're going to feel incredibly downhearted. So now is your moment to give those ladies or guys, or guys listening, a piece of advice on how to overcome being downhearted, how to stop it, how to look at it. You've given an idea of how you processed it, but how other people process things might be different. So what would you say? Would you add to anything that you've said already?
I've said a million times, keep showing up. And I really mean that. And I don't mean keep showing up to shows. I mean just keep showing up for yourself. And that is physically and mentally as well. So yes, your cardio, your steps, your sessions, your food, to the gram of salt, keep showing up in all those variables, but keep showing up for yourself as well. Remember why you started this. Visualize where you want to be, because it will be yours if you work for it. Somebody said to me recently, there's no hope for it. You've got to want it, and you've got to work for it. And I stand by that, because if you know what you want out of something and you keep showing up for it, you will reap the rewards of that. And have the confidence in yourself and your abilities, because in this sport, you've got to control what you can. So hold on to that and just keep just keep showing up. I can't say it enough. I really can't.
Yeah, you said it after NABA. It's on the vlog on YouTube.
Yeah.
Here's a scenario for you. Imagine you end your season after an FM UK.
I know. That would have been awful.
3 wins and 2 overalls are non-existent if you do that.
Yeah. If things don't go your way in life as well, and there's an if I called it there because it didn't go my way, it would have had a profound impact in my future in the sport. But I kept showing up.
In what way?
Well, it would have been negative, I think. I appreciate it's a subjective sport, but if I ended the way that I felt, which was low, I'd have gone into my off season. Granted, it can go the other way. It can really drive you forward. And you think, I never want to feel like that again.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter was that there was a crossroads there that I could have called it a day there, and it would have been disheartened. And it would have been really easy for me to do that and just said, no, I'm done.
Yeah, I don't think I would have tried to push you not to end it there. Like if you'd said to me let's end it, I would have been like, fuck no, no way, we're not ending like this. We can't end like this, you know what I mean? And then it was after NABA, those were your words.
Yeah.
When you walked off stage with the sword, you just turned to me and were like, go on, I think we should call it there. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, and from a coach, I've got an athlete here who's winning everything, and I know is going to keep winning, doing incredibly well. I'm like, but it's not about that. It's about you. It's about the person. You're human. You know what I mean? And I think that it was a right decision. Of course, you competed the Sunday because you were with the team. You were in my car. I was like, well, I'm not driving you back to Aberdeen, so you did it and you won as well, which was class. But yeah, I thought that would be appropriate because I've competed multiple times before. I've had a result not go my way. I know how it feels. Like losing sucks. Fucking shit, because it tugs on our pride. But there's a certain way to lose in this sport, and there's a certain way to win as well. And I often say, be humble in victory and gracious in defeat. And I think that you were. You clapped for the winners. You congratulated them. You were happy for them. You chatted to them. You didn't throw the dolls at the pram. You went away, and then behind closed doors, processed your emotions. And that's how Double Miss Scotland should do it.
Yeah.
100%. But something I think would be good for listeners to listen to as well is you got a lot of, I know, members of the team looking up to you. I could tell you that right now. We could rattle off a few names. But there'll be people in the shadows. They're watching you. They're inspired by you. They think, fuck, Carolyn has done so many shows back to back. I want to do that. I want to be me, right? So what I want you to kind of go into is, how did you find doing so many shows back to back? I want you to talk me through your emotions, during it, maybe after it, the realization after it, or the not realization during it of the results and whatnot. Because it's incredibly hard to do even 2 shows back to back, one weekend and the next. You did 6. Is that right?
Yeah, that's 7 shows total, wasn't it? 7.
4, 5, 6. So yeah, you're right.
7. I mean, I don't know any different because I've not done a season before that. So one hell of a first season. But I think in terms of looking at the prep and the process from back-to-back shows, for me, it was stress-free because if I say I competed on the Sunday, that evening, you'd sent me my plan of what I was doing on the Monday after competing. So for me, I knew what I was doing at all times. I had advance notice of it. I think it was fine because you compete and you get up in the morning, you get straight back on prep. You've been doing that for weeks on end, so that's not a change to your routine at all. I work a Monday to Friday job, so I don't work in the fitness industry. I don't manage my own hours. I'm not self-employed, so I would sort of take the Monday off after the shows because you feel pretty rubbish that day. You don't feel too fresh, and you have to get up and get back on the stairs. And then it was daily check-ins. So I had contact with you every day to make sure that any sort of like water retention from the weekend, or if we're trying to come in tighter, that we're heading in the right direction. So that happened every week on the bounce. So I always knew what I was doing, and I was always pre-prepared for what was to come. So the actual process was fine. Towards the end of the season, the fatigue started to creep in. It was probably that last show, UK UP, after the NABA overall, that I was like, I am battered now. And I don't know if that was, I think that was just an accumulation of everything at that point. So I genuinely didn't struggle too much between shows. It was actually okay because it would sort of be like 3 or 4 low days, and then we're straight back to high days, and then the show day buzz kicks back in again, and you've got sort of like 3 normal days, and then running back to low days. So for me, I found the back-to-back shows pretty manageable. I think the most irritating thing was probably trying to get the bloody tan off. But aside from that, it was fine. I think I wasn't taking the time that I should have at the time to reflect. So anyone who's around me on show day, like even stuff, I was just running on sheer adrenaline. And then show day, I was the same. And then the night after shows, I was like, right, this is what's happening next. So I wasn't taking any time to process any of the emotions, really, especially the success. I was given like the sort of like the lows, the space that they needed, but the success I wasn't giving it.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't until the end of the season that all of the success hit me. And I was sitting in my living room looking at 2 overalls, all these trophies, all these medals. Like, I did that. I've just done that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting so much support, so much lovely praise. Everyone's saying, like, you must feel amazing. You must feel this. You must feel that. It's lovely. A lot of congratulations, a lot of support from the team, from colleagues, from friends, from family. And I was like, I don't think I believe what's just happened. I don't think I processed what's just happened. And that was quite hard because that was my life for 6 weeks. And it was, in my view, it was just gone. And I was like, back to reality, like, oh my God. And I hadn't taken a minute at any point to process it, which is a big learning curve for the next season, is to really be in the moment. Because I think I got the luck. One of the overalls or something, I got off stage at some point in the season. I said to you, we're 6 days out. And you were like, whoa,
yeah,
come on.
yeah,
Process what you're in for at the moment. But I was just chasing the next one, just thinking about how I can be better all the time. And that's a good trait to have as a bodybuilder. But as a person, you do need to just stop and just give yourself a pat on the back. And I don't mean a brief one, like really take it in.
yeah. Because I mean, for anyone listening, like talk them through what you were like emotionally after the season was over.
Oh, I've never ever experienced emotion like it. I kind of was known for being a bit of an ice queen. And there was no ice about me. I was emotional. And I mean, bawling, just absolutely bawling. Just couldn't pull myself together at all. Just, yeah, it was really, really tough. And it was kind of like, why am I crying? You know, why am I so sad? Because it was just a general feeling of sadness. Like I've just achieved a dream. You know, we all picture that moment of getting called for an overall when we're on the Stairmaster on a really tough prep morning. We visualize it over and over again. I've just achieved that. And I'm so sad. And it was just because I just hadn't processed it. I hadn't taken it in. And I didn't want it to end.
I think part of what you just said there, like, I think you're just sad that it was over.
Yeah.
Because you were like always thinking, what's next, what's next, what's next? And when all of a sudden it was next year, it's like, what? You know, like for as much as you didn't realize that you were getting a huge hit of dopamine.
Yeah.
Winning these overalls, right? Huge hit. And everybody knows in this world, like you can only run high for so long before you got to come crashing back down.
And I crashed.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm talking like, well, listen, like, you know, we speak quite regularly, right? And you'd voice note me and you'd be halfway through the voice note, yeah, but you're like, I need to go. I don't want to fucking cry again. And you can hear like your voice building up and the tears that had come. But you know, we shouldn't laugh about it. It's obviously it was an incredibly tough time for you, but I think it really probably a hard hard lesson learned.
Totally, totally. I think, yeah, you just live in the moment, don't take anything for granted.
Because my next question was like, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned? But I think you just answered it.
Yeah, definitely. Live in the moment and believe in yourself.
I think that you never doubt yourself again.
I won't let myself.
But hey, that's the traits of a lot of first timers bodybuilders. Because why do we get into this sport in general? Well, we are typically people that maybe at first don't have a lot of self confidence, right? We want to improve our body, we want to improve our confidence, right? And whether we hate to admit it or not, regardless of how big we get, it's still there eating away at us. But I think that you're kind of proving yourself now, and if not, have a look at the big fat sword and vase in your living room, that you're worth all that and then more. But anyway, let's maybe have covered this, because I was going to say, what advice would you give to girls plagued by self-doubt that want to compete for the first time? So we make it specific to first timers, not people that have done 2 or 3 seasons. First timers, have a chat to yourself a year ago. What are you telling her about how to stop doubting herself now? You know what I mean?
Yeah, just go for it. Just honestly, just go for it. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Just go for it. You've nothing to lose. Go for it. Give it 100%. Just see what happens, because you never know.
Yeah.
You never ever know. You've just got to take the first step. Start working with someone who knows what they're talking about. God, put in the work,
Yeah.
put in the
I'm
graft,
glad,
don't shy from the process. Just put in 110%.
Yeah.
Because you will get there every day. Just do it.
I'm glad at the start of the call you said you had loads of consults with other coaches, and then you chose me. Like, yes, brilliant, because then that's just what happened this past season. But you're so right, and there's some like quick fire questions of things I put on Instagram. I don't know if you got more as well that you want to answer, but I'm going to go through the appropriate ones that are here and leave out the not so appropriate ones. Clara has asked this question, and after it, she said, "Please read it out to her like that." And it says, "How are you so fucking fit, girl?" And it has a love heart emoji face on it. That's from Clara. What's your answer?
Following Bond's programming.
Second question. I think you'll know this person. Who's your favourite person on Lee Crescent?
Matt Fraser.
Third question. Who's your favourite pro physiques?
Ooh. I'm going to go with another Aberdonian pro. I say another, I'm not a pro, but an Aberdonian pro, Aaron Thompson.
Fab.
100%.
What advice would you give a first timer?
Go for it. Just do it.
Would you change anything if you could go back to when you were prepping? Would you do anything differently?
That's a good one.
You could elaborate on this one as well. I feel like that's a pretty good question.
Would I do anything differently? In terms of the day-to-day variables, no, I wouldn't change anything about prep. But it goes back to that self-confidence, self-belief, self-worth piece. 100%. I would try and change my mindset if I could go back. I'd be a bit nicer to myself throughout the process, rather than all this "you're not going to be good enough" nonsense, because it's not productive. It didn't help, didn't add anything to the prep. So I would definitely change that. And I'd maybe obviously change living in the moment a little bit more to soften the blow after shows. But in terms of the prep itself, it was so seamless, and I wouldn't change anything about it.
You know what? I wouldn't even like, as much as I could sit here and say, "Oh, in hindsight, I would have done that going into that show." I probably wouldn't have, because it's what brought the results to the next shows. Like, if we did things differently going into NFM UK and you won, would you still get the success that came thereafter? who knows? Maybe you wouldn't have wanted. Maybe we would have just, oh, I've won, cool, end it, you know? So
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done anything differently anyway. Like, as we, with each show, we kind of peaked you differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
We
was
gathered a lot
similar.
of data. A lot of data.
It was similar, but like the food got more. Some shows we then changed our process of drying out and blah blah blah. And I think that's why I like the fact you did so many shows, because it
It sets us up.
gave me an opportunity to just like perfect it. Because how I pitch it to people is like, as a coach, what you're trying to do for the athlete is you're trying to hit bullseye on the day. Now, sometimes you maybe don't get dead center. You just get to the right a bit, to the left a bit, up a bit, or whatever, right? But when you do so many, you get closer and closer and closer to the center. So then there comes a time where you just go bullseye, 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 bullseye. So I'm just sitting there thinking, right, well, there's nothing, you couldn't have looked any better, you couldn't have done anything differently. So whatever result we got, then that's a result that was warranted. And turns out by the end, it was fucking winning. Because, let's face it, it was although you won technically at FMC, it was your fifth show that you won.
Yeah.
Because that was IBFA was your fifth show, then it was NABA your sixth, and then UKP 7.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, just shows you is that I'm not saying that we didn't nail it, because we did. It's just some results in our way, but just an example there. One of them is, what's your go-to comfort food when having a day off?
All right. Well, I don't really have like a comfort food, because food doesn't give me comfort, if I'm being completely honest. I think if you want to know what my favorite food is, it's pizza. If I'm having an off-plan meal, but I wouldn't ever want to call it comfort food. I don't think that's right.
Yeah, totally fair. Right, I think we're going to be taking up enough of your time already. But listen, what I'd love you to do is, for anyone out there listening who is inspired by you, wants to follow you, maybe they want to slide into your DMs, or maybe they just want to see your journey, how would they get in contact with you? How would they find out where you are?
Probably just Instagram. So _CC Mitchell.
Fantastic. So I think I speak for everyone, given the beans. When I say everyone, I mean me, right? But I mean, like, I'm talking about the listeners as well, that it's been a pleasure to have you on. And
Thank you.
as your coach, I was super proud. As your friend, I was super proud as well. I think that everything that you achieved this season was thoroughly deserved, and it couldn't have happened to a better person. Your hard work was rewarded, but it's really just the perseverance and the overcoming the self-doubt that I just think is life-changing for you. And it's just been a pleasure to be part of your journey.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so grateful, and I honestly wouldn't have gotten any of those results without you.
You're just being nice here. I always say it's like the Matrix. I just give you a pill. You take this pill, you go back to sleep. You take this pill, or I often say, like, I'll show you the door, you step through it, right? I told you how many rice cakes to eat. I told you how much whey to put in your meals. You did that. But hey, we'll agree to disagree. We'll shake hands, right? And we'll just say it was a team effort. But to anyone out there listening, please go give this badass bitch a follow. Shout her out, tag her Instagram stories, or whatever it may be. But for myself, Carolyn, wherever you are, whatever you do, give it the beans.